Hello friends. If you want to watch the super hit movies in English, then make sure to like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe. Friends, in today's video we will talk about the movie, what this movie is about and where you can watch it. I'll share all the interesting facts related to this film. In this video, I will also tell you on which platform or satellite channel you can watch this movie. Along with that, we'll discuss the technical department, music, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, and box office collection of the film. We'll also talk about the story, give a small review, discuss the star cast, their performances, and which actor played which role. So friends, I request you to watch this video till the end. Ip Man, Chinese, / is a 2008 Hong Kong biographical martial arts film based on the life of Ip Man, a grandmaster of the martial art Wing Chun and teacher of martial artist legend Bruce Lee. The film focuses on events in Ip's life that supposedly took place in the city of Foshan during the Sino-Japanese War. The film was directed by Wilson Yip, and stars Donnie Yen as the main character, with martial arts choreography by Hung. The film co-stars Simon Yam, Lynn Hung, Lam Ka-tung, Sin Yu, Hiroyuki Ikuki, and Tenma Shibuya. The film was a co-production between China and Hong Kong, and was the last film to be distributed by Mandarin Films. Ip Man is the first film in the Ip Man film series. It premiered in Beijing on December 10, 2008, and was released theatrically in Hong Kong on December 19, 2008, receiving widespread acclaim from critics and audiences. Before the film's release, Raymond Wong announced that there would be a sequel. A second installment titled Ip Man 2, was released in April 2010, a third installment titled Ip Man 3 was released in 2015, and Ip Man 4, the finale, was released in 2019. Ip Man grossed more than $22 million worldwide, despite not being released in North America and most of Europe. Following its success, the film was nominated for 12 Hong Kong Film Awards, winning awards for Best Film and Best Action Choreography. In 1935, Foshan is a hub of southern Chinese martial arts, where the various schools' students compete against each other. Ip Man, the most skilled martial artist in town, maintains a low profile while building a reputation for skill through friendly, closed-door competitions with other masters. One day, a local troublemaker named Yuan loses his kite, which lands in a tree in the Ip family's backyard. While retrieving it, Yuan witnesses Ip defeating fellow kung fu master Lu in a sparring match, and spreads the news around town, inadvertently embarrassing Lu. Yuan's brother Lin, a restaurant owner and disciple of Lu, publicly embarrasses Yuan as he tries to arrange a rematch between Lu and Ip. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, Ip and his family are forced to move into a decrepit apartment after the Imperial Japanese Army confiscates the house for use as their military headquarters. Desperate to support his family, Ip finds work at a coal mine alongside Lin, who hopes to reconcile with his brother for humiliating him but has so far failed to track him down. General Miura, a Japanese karate master, sets up an arena where Chinese martial artists can fight with his military trainees for a bag of rice. Former police officer Li Zhao, now an interpreter for the Japanese, offers the martial artists the opportunity to fight in the arena. Ip at first declines to participate, but agrees to go following Lin's disappearance after taking part. At the arena, Ip witnesses Lu being executed by Miura's deputy Colonel Sato, for picking up a bag of rice from a prior victory after giving up a second match against 3 karateka. Deducing that Lin was killed in his fight against Miura, Ip demands a match with 10 karateka at once, whom he brutally defeats. His skill arouses the interest of Miura, who asks Ip to return. Ip collects Liu's bag of rice and gifts it to his surviving family. Jin Shanzhao, a highly skilled northern Chinese martial arts master who once defeated all the masters in Foshan except IP, now leads a bandit gang and harasses the workers at a cotton mill run by IP's friend Chao Ching Chen. IP agrees to train the workers in Wing Chun for self-defense. The workers are able to stall the gang when they return, as IP arrives to defeat Jin and Yuan, now a part of the gang. After the fight, IP confronts Yuan and gives him a small tin that belonged to Lin after informing him of his brother's death. Yuan opens the tin and finds his kite inside. This motivates Yuan to leave the gang. When IP does not return to the arena, Miura sends Sato, along with several soldiers, to track IP down. After overpowering them at the apartment, IP and his family flee and hide in Lee's house. The Japanese track IP to the cotton mill and take the workers hostage. Despite Lee's warnings, IP surrenders himself to the Japanese while arranging for his wife and son to be sent to Hong Kong for protection. Miura asks IP to train the Japanese soldiers in Chinese martial arts, but IP refuses and challenges Miura to a match. Though Sato requests to execute IP, Miura accepts the challenge to defend the Japanese honor and crush the Chinese spirit. Behind Miura's back, Sato threatens IP with death if he does not allow Miura to win. At the city square, IP defeats Miura after a long and hard fight. Looking over the cheering crowd, which includes his wife and son, IP is shot in the shoulder by Sato. As the crowd overwhelms the Japanese soldiers, Lee kills Sato with his own gun. However, IP is taken away by Chow amid the chaos and manages to escape with his family to Hong Kong. A closing montage and captions reveal that IP spent the rest of his life working to spread the teachings of Wing Chun, establishing a school and training several students, including Bruce Lee. Donnie Yen as Ip Man, the son of a wealthy family and Foshan's only practitioner of the martial art form known as Wing Chun. Lynn Hung as Chung Wing Sing, IP Man's wife. Tenma Shibuya as Colonel Sato, Japanese, Rakugun Taisa Sato / Zuo Teng Shang Xiao, a sadistic, cruel Japanese colonel and Miura's second-in-command. Gordon Lam as Li Chu, simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Pinyin, Li Zhao, a police officer and IP Man's acquaintance. He becomes a translator for the Japanese officers when they occupy Foshan despite being labeled a traitor by his neighbors. Fan Su Wang as Jin Shanzhao, Jin Shanzhao, an aggressive northern martial artist who comes to Foshan to challenge other masters, hoping to set up a school and climb out of poverty. When the Japanese invade, he forms a gang of bandits and is eventually chased out of Foshan by Ip Man. Simon Yam as Chao Ching Chen, Joe Kinkan, a businessman and IP Man's acquaintance who borrows money from him to set up a cotton mill. Xin Yu as Lin, Wuka Lin, the first son of a restaurant owner in Foshan, a gifted martial artist and IP Man's closest friend. Wang Yunam as Yuan, the second son of a restaurant owner in Foshan who causes a lot of trouble and often fights with his brother. Calvin Cheng as Chao Kong Yu, the son of the cotton mill owner, who is interested in learning Kung Fu from Ip Man. Chen's Hiwi as Master Lu, Liao Shifu, a martial arts master of Foshan who turns to prize fighting when the Japanese invade to support himself. Sato kills him when he tries to claim a reward despite forfeiting a match. Hiroyuki Ikuki as General Miura, Japanese, Rakugun Taisho Miura / Sanpyu Jiangjun, an abusive Japanese general and karate expert, who is eager to assert the dominance of his native traditions over those of the Chinese. We wanted to do this movie because Ip Man was a man who inspired the world and society as a whole. He was a man who believed in certain morals and principles, and we want to use this movie as a platform to convey those values to the audience. For me, that was the most important part of making this movie. Director Wilson Yip on making Ip Man. The idea of an Ip Man biopic originated in 1998 when Jeffrey Lau and Corey Yun discussed the idea of making a film based on Bruce Lee's martial arts master. However, Paragon Films Ltd., the studio producing the proposed film, closed and the project was abandoned. Producer Raymond Wong decided to develop his own Ip Man film with full consent from IP's sons, and had filmmakers head to Foshan to research IP's life. IP Chun, IP Man's eldest son, along with martial arts master Liu Ouyang, Jun Gao, and several other Wing Chun practitioners served as technical consultants for the film. Principal photography for Ip Man began in March 2008 and ended in August. Filming took place in Shanghai, which was used to architecturally recreate Foshan. During filming, conflicts arose between the producers of Ip Man and filmmaker Wong Kar-wai over the film's working title. Wong, who had been developing his own Ip Man biopic, clashed with the producers after learning that their film would be titled Grandmaster Ip Man, Chinese, which was too similar to the title of Wong's film, The Grandmaster. Ip Man is the first film based on the life of Ip Man. It also marks the fourth film collaboration between director Wilson Yip and actor Donnie Yen. The two also reunite with co-star Simon Yam after 2005's SPL, Chapeau Lang. The screenplay for Ip Man was written by Edmund Wong, the son of film producer Raymond Wong. Wong was the screenwriter of Yip and Yen's second collaboration, 2000 and SIX's Dragon Tiger Gate. IP Man's eldest son, IP Chun, his student Liu Ouyang, and Chang Quan gold medalist Tu Yu Hang served as technical consultants for the film, providing advice on the film's story and martial arts choreography. The music for the film was provided by veteran Japanese composer Kenji Kawai, who also served as a composer on the 2006 film, Dragon Tiger Gate, which featured Wilson Yip and Donnie Yen as director and actor respectively. The film was originally conceived in 1998 when Jeffrey Lau and Corey Yoon first thought of the idea of making a film based on IP Man's life. Donnie Yen signed onto the project, hoping to star as IP, with Stephen Chow co-starring as Bruce Lee. Yen had signed the contract and received part of the acting fee. However, the studio producing the film closed, and the project was abandoned. In December 2007, plans to make a new Ip Man film were announced with the filmmakers researching IP's life in Foshan. Producer Raymond Wong stated that the film would take on a similar look and feel to SPL, Chapeau Lang. On February 26, 2008, a press conference for the film was held in Foshan, where it was announced that Wilson Yip would be directing the film, while Yen would appear in the leading role as IP. Lynn Hung, Lam Ka-tung, Simon Yam were announced to be appearing in supporting roles, while Sammo Hung would serve as the film's martial arts choreographer. Casting director Jong Yan-bin spent 3 months casting actors in various roles for the film. He had completed casting during principal photography in March 2008. Principal photography for Ip Man began in March 2008, and was completed by the end of August. A majority of the film focuses on events surrounding Ip Man that took place in Foshan in the 1930s and 1940s during the Sino-Japanese War. Since the buildings in modern-day Foshan are architecturally different from the ones of the film's period, the filmmakers decided to shoot the film in Shanghai. Filming first took place in a storeroom in the industrial district of Shanghai. Having difficulties scouting a cotton factory suitable for shooting, set designers decided to recreate one in the style of the 1930s. They spent weeks transforming an abandoned storeroom into the Zhenhua Cotton Mill Factory, a 1930s cotton mill factory founded by IP's friend Chao Ching-chen, played in the film by Simon Yam, during the Sino-Japanese War. It was where Ip Man first taught Wing Chun openly to the public. Production designer Kenneth Mack included Western elements in his design, since Foshan, in earlier years, was a unique place where Chinese and Western cultures converged. Pillars were made to resemble English lampposts, and Western lighting, chairs, and tableware were also used. To convey the culture and feel of the time, the buildings were made to look obsolete and worn out. Apart from historical references, Mack also created a glass house which was used in a scene in the film. His biggest achievement lies in playing a true historical figure. Unlike fictitious characters he had been doing in the past, he'd have to try his best to understand the thoughts of Yip Man, to be him, and to fit in within the past. Director Wilson Yip on Donnie Yen being cast as Yip Man. The martial arts choreography was designed by Sammo Hung and veteran fight and stunt coordinator Tony Leung Soo Hung. Hung had previously collaborated with Wilson Yip and Donnie Yen as an actor in the 2005 film SPL, Chapeau Lang. He was hired as the choreographer mainly because of his experience on the 1978 film Warriors 2 and 1982's The Prodigal Son, both of which involved Wing Chun. When asked how he would work with Yen to direct the action scenes, Hung replied matter-of-factly, "With my mouth." Yen described the role as the most emotionally and mentally difficult in his career. He spent months preparing for the role by going on a strict diet which consisted of eating one meal a day, training in Wing Chun, and learning more about Ip Man through his two sons. This was all in the hopes of portraying an erudite and cultured Ip Man, as well as bringing out the special traits of Wing Chun. Yen even went as far as to stay in character after filming, wearing his costume and changing his voice and movement patterns. While rehearsing a fight scene, Yen was reportedly injured when an axe wielder accidentally slashed the side of his left eye. Yen also had a masseur on set as he could not raise his right shoulder due to an injury. Japanese actor Hiroyuki Ikuke, who holds a black belt in judo, found it difficult working under Hung's command. In one scene, he suffered a mild concussion after receiving 4 consecutive blows from celebrated fight coordinator Edward Sweko Chan. Hung later praised Yen and Ikuke's performances in the film, even though Ikuke was not trained in Chinese martial arts and was not given a lot of complex moves. Ip Man's original title was controversial. It was disputed when film director Wong Kar-wai announced plans to make his own Ip Man film with Tony Leung Soo-wai while filming 2046. Wong had planned his own Ip Man biopic titled The Great Master, with Leung playing the role of Ip. Wong's film, however, had been in development hell, having been announced several years earlier. Producer Raymond Wong wanted to name his film Grandmaster Yip Man, which bore a resemblance to the title Wong Kar-wai wanted to use for his film. To settle the dispute, Raymond Wong publicly retracted the film title, stating, "Actually, all along, we have called our film Yip Man, but our mainland investors said that Yip Man was a great master of his times, so we changed our title to Grandmaster Yip Man out of respect for him." In a 2008 interview, Raymond Wong revealed that The Great Master was in development. Wong Kar-wai's Yip Man film, titled The Grandmaster, was released on January 8, 2013 in China. Yip Man premiered in Beijing, China on December 10, 2008, only 2 days prior to its release in China. The film was later released in Malaysia, Singapore, and New Zealand on December 18, 2008, 1 day prior to its release date in Hong Kong. The film was released in the United Kingdom on October 2, 2009. In 2010, Mandarin Films sold North American distribution rights for the film to distributor Well Go USA. Prior to its theatrical release in China, Yip Man held a test screening in Beijing on December 4, 2008. The film was highly praised, based on survey sheets returned by the audience. Donnie Yen's portrayal of Yip Man was repeatedly hailed as the year's best performance. High praise was also given to the film's co-stars, Fan Su Wong, Lam Ka-tung, and Lynn Hung. Yip Man also received positive reactions from film critics. Salon's Andrew O'Hare deemed Yip Man a well-paced and satisfying piece of Chinese nationalist pulp, referring to the film's heavy anti-Japanese sentiment. Derek Ellie of Variety magazine wrote in his review, "Yen, who's taking on real star charisma in middle age, is aces as Ip, with a simple dignity that exactly mirrors the movie's own and a gracefulness in combat that's very different from his trademark whiplash style. Malaysian film critic Lim Chang Mo of the Malay Mail awarded the film 3 stars out of 4, writing that the film was nicely balanced with great martial arts action and an engaging narrative. Lim later placed the film at number 6 in his list of top 10 movies of 2008. Jen Ogilvy of 40 Times wrote, "What carries Ip Man is its dramatic charge. It is the story's entanglement in the real horrors of Japanese occupation that pulls the viewer in and builds tension into the fight scenes." The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reported that 86% of critics have given the film a positive review based on 28 reviews, with an average rating of 6.6/10. The site's critics' consensus reads, "At once beholden to the established conventions of the genre and delightfully subversive of them, Ip Man is one of the most exciting, and refreshingly character-driven, martial arts films in years." At Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 59 out of 100 based on 9 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. The film was never meant to be a true biographical film to Ip Man's life, but to broadly touch on the elements from his life. Most of the central turns of the plot are there only for the purpose of making a movie more exciting, including the scenes depicting duels between Ip Man and the Japanese, including Consul General Miura Yoshiaki, as well as Ip Man encountering hardship during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Ip Man's eldest son, Ip Chun, would have preferred the film to be shot on location in Foshan and noted the mansion was grander than the original one. Ip Man grossed 14,948,157 yen, $2,188,982 on its opening weekend in China. The film's revenues increased in the second week by 86.1%, grossing 27,812,224 yen, $4,073,201 to retain second place at the box office. The film experienced a small decrease in revenue in its third weekend, dropping 10.5% to 24,889,189 yen, $3,645,112, though remaining in second place. Ip Man continued to decrease in revenue, grossing 19,956,454 yen, $2,922,695 in its fourth week while staying in second place. After 6 weeks of theatrical release, Ip Man grossed a total of 93,740,529 yen, $13,728,640. The film was China's 13th highest grossing film of 2008. During its opening weekend in Hong Kong, Ip Man came in first place at the box office, grossing HK $4.5 million, $579,715. In its second week, Ip Man moved to second place, while grossing HK $6,156,765, $789,303, with a 36.2% increase in revenue. The film continued to decrease in revenue in its third week, grossing HK $3,494,366, $447,981, while staying in second place at the box office. Ip Man moved to third place in its fourth week, grossing HK $2,075,250, $266,055. After 7 weeks of theatrical release in Hong Kong, Ip Man had grossed HK $25,581,958.69, $3,300,847 domestically. The film ranks as the 8th highest grossing film in Hong Kong of 2008. In total, the film had grossed $22,108,789 worldwide, despite not being released in North America and most of Europe. Ip Man was released on DVD and Blu-ray formats on February 13, 2009. Releases include single disc and 2-disc special edition formats. Features for the special edition include deleted scenes, a making-of featurette, a theatrical trailer, interviews with director Wilson Yip and actor Donnie Yen, and featurettes on both Ip Man and Wing Chun martial arts. Ip Man was released on DVD and Blu-ray in the United States on July 27, 2010. A 3-disc deluxe collector's edition was released in China, but only contains Mandarin dubbed soundtracks and no English subtitles. In the United Kingdom, Ip Man was 2011's 7th best-selling foreign language film on physical home video formats, and the 2nd best-selling Chinese film, below Ip Man 2. During the Japanese invasion of China, a wealthy martial artist is forced to leave his home when his city is occupied. With little means of providing for themselves, Ip Man and the remaining members of the city must find a way to survive. In 1935 in Foshan, South China, there are martial arts schools on every street corner. Ip Man is the undisputed martial arts champion, yet he has not devoted himself to teaching. Despite this, it seems that all the kung fu masters of the city are eager to fight him to improve their reputation. Ricardo Amador dramatizes the life of Ip Man, 1893 to 1972, in the mid to late 1930s. Foshan is a prosperous city with many martial arts schools. Yip, who practices Wing Chun, is the local master. When a rough gang comes to town, it's Yip they must challenge. Then, Japan invades China. Yip and his family live in poverty, with Yip taking any work for food. General Miura, now in charge, stages martial arts fights between Chinese and his men. Winners get extra rice. When the general's attaché murders a colleague of Yip's, Yip must step forward. At the same time, the ruffians return to town, this time threatening a local cotton mill. Can Yip protect the mill and also face Miura and certain death? In 1930s China, the town of Foshan is the legendary hub of Kung Fu martial arts. Ip Man is an accomplished grandmaster of Wing Chun Kung Fu but chooses to keep a low profile and doesn't take any students. Challenge after brutal challenge sees the town realize that Ip Man is unstoppable. After the Japanese invasion, the town descends into chaos and struggles to survive. Ip Man rises up to challenge General Miura and the Japanese army. In the 1930s, Foshan is a hub of southern Chinese martial arts, where various schools actively recruit disciples and compete against each other. Although the Wing Chun master Ip Man, Donnie Yen, is the most skilled martial artist in Foshan, he is unassuming and keeps a low profile. As an independent wealthy man, he feels no need to accept any disciples and instead spends his days training, meeting with friends, and spending time with his family. However, his wife Chung Wing Sing, Lynn Hung, is often resentful of the time he spends training and discussing martial arts with friends and colleagues. Chao Ching Chen is IP's friend who notices that people are getting richer in China. He believes that the spending power is increasing and soon people will demand more clothes. He decides to open a cotton mill in Foshan. Chao Ching Chen is IP's good friend and partners with him in his new venture. Though not a professional martial artist, IP is respected in Foshan due to the abilities he displays in friendly, closed-door competitions with local masters. One day, a local troublemaker named Yuan, Wang Yunam, loses his kite, which lands in a tree in the IP family's backyard. While retrieving it, Yuan witnesses IP defeating fellow Kung Fu master Lu, Chen's Hiwi, in a sparring match, and spreads the news around town, inadvertently embarrassing Lu. Yuan's brother Lin, a restaurant owner and disciple of Lu, publicly embarrasses Yuan as he tries to arrange a rematch between Lu and IP. IP's reputation is further enhanced when he defeats an aggressive, rude, highly skilled northern Chinese martial arts master, Jin Shanzhao, Fan Su Wang, thus upholding the regional pride of fellow southern stylists and others in Foshan. The Japanese invasion in 1937 adversely affects the life of everyone in Foshan. IP's house is claimed by the Japanese and used as their Foshan headquarters. IP and his family lose their wealth and are forced to move into a decrepit house. Desperate to support his family, IP accepts work at a coal mine. The Japanese general Miura, Hiroyuki Ikuki, who is a karate master, establishes an arena where Chinese martial artists compete with his military trainees. The Chinese earn a bag of rice for every match they win. Li Chu, Gordon Lam, a former police officer and IP's acquaintance, is now working as a translator for the Japanese and is making the offer to the martial artists working at the coal mine. IP at first declines to participate in the matches. However, when his friend Lin Hung goes missing, he agrees to take part in order to investigate. IP arrives to see Liu executed by Miura's lieutenant, Sato, Tenma Shibuya, for picking up a bag of rice from a prior victory after conceding in a second match against 3 karateka. He also comes to understand that Lin was killed in an earlier fight. Barely able to contain his rage, IP demands a match with 10 karateka at once. Despite having not practiced Wing Chun since the invasion began, in order to conserve what little food his family had to survive, he proceeds to mercilessly crush each of them with a brutal barrage of his martial art mastery, showing none of the restraint he exhibited in previous engagements. His skill arouses the interest of Miura, who seeks to learn more about IP and see him fight again. IP collects Liu's bag of rice and gifts it to his surviving family. When IP does not return to the arena, Miura grows impatient and sends Sato along with several soldiers to find him. The lieutenant then gestures at IP's wife, prompting IP to incapacitate them. IP later visits his friend Chao Ching Chen, Simon Yam, who owns and runs a cotton mill in Foshan. Chao tells IP that a bandit gang led by Jin Shanzhao is harassing his workers and trying to extort money from them. IP trains the workers in Wing Chun for self-defense. When the bandits return to the cotton mill, the workers fight back using the techniques that IP taught them. IP himself arrives midway through the battle to take care of things personally and defeats Jin Shanzhao, warning him never to harass the workers again. After the fight, IP confronts Yuan and gives him a small tin that belonged to Lin after informing him of his brother's death. Yuan opens the tin and finds his kite inside. This motivates Yuan to leave the gang. After overpowering them at the apartment, IP and his family flee and hide in Li's house. The Japanese track IP to the cotton mill and take the workers hostage. Despite Li's warnings, IP surrenders himself to the Japanese while arranging for his wife and son to be sent to Hong Kong for protection. Miura tells IP that his life will be spared if he agrees to instruct the Japanese soldiers in martial arts. IP refuses and challenges Miura to a match, which Miura accepts, both because of his love for martial arts and because refusing the challenge would be a humiliation to the Japanese. Behind Miura's back, Sato threatens IP with death if he does not allow Miura to win. The match between IP and Miura is held in public in Foshan Square. At first, the two fighters seem equally matched, but Miura soon finds himself unable to penetrate IP's impeccable defense and becomes overwhelmed by his relentless and direct blows. He is helpless to defend himself as IP effortlessly uses him as a wooden dummy, inflicting a severe beating on him and clearly winning. As the beaten general lies down after his defeat, IP looks over to the cheering Chinese crowd and spots his wife and child with Chao, the owner of the factory. Enraged, Sato shoots at IP and IP is hit in his shoulder, sparking a scuffle between the Chinese audience and the Japanese soldiers. During the scuffle, Li Chu kills Sato with Sato's own gun. IP is taken away in the middle of the chaos. The epilogue reveals that he survives and escapes to Hong Kong with his family with the help of Chao Ching Chen. There, IP establishes a Wing Chun school, where his students come to learn martial arts from him, including Bruce Lee. The Kung Fu master travels to the US where his student has upset the local martial arts community by opening a Wing Chun school. Ip Man has to travel to San Francisco to find a new school for his son who just gets expelled. When he attempts to get a recommendation letter from the Chinese Benevolent Association, he finds that the martial arts masters are furious with one of IP Man's students who teaches Kung Fu to Americans. Meanwhile, discrimination against Chinese is making things even more tense as Ip Man has to stand up for his fellow countrymen as well. Donnie Yen returns to his role as the legendary Wing Chun master in the grand finale of the Ip Man saga. Following the death of his wife, Ip Man travels to America to search for a better future for his son. Meanwhile, he must find a way to ease tensions between the local Kung Fu masters and his star student, Bruce Lee. In 1964, following the death of his wife, Ip Man, Donnie Yen, an unassuming Chinese Wing Chun master originally from Foshan, discovers he has throat cancer due to smoking. The doctor asks IP to stop smoking and to consider chemotherapy as the cancer is malignant and is spreading rapidly. After his rebellious son IP Ching, Jim Liu, fights back against a bully and is expelled from school, IP decides to travel to San Francisco upon the invitation of his former student Bruce Lee and to look for a new school for his son at the same time. Bruce Lee had sent his student Billy, Simon Chiamba, to Hong Kong to invite IP for a karate tournament in San Francisco, as an honored guest. IP promises to call at 10 p.m. HK time each day, but Ching is livid with IP and says that he need not call. Ching says he won't go to America and that he does not like studying. Ching wants to teach martial arts. After Ching and his father get into a heated argument that ends with the older IP striking his son in the face, he entrusts Ching to his friend, Fat Bo, Kent Chang. His student, Bruce Lee, Danny Chan, has upset the local martial arts community in San Francisco by opening a Wing Chun school, teaching the Americans martial arts and writing an English language book on martial arts. IP discovers from his reporter friend Liang Zhen, Ngo Kanin, that, because he is a foreigner, that a referral letter from the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association is needed to enroll Ching into an American school. The president of the association has asked to meet IP first before approving the request for the letter. Wang Wuyu, master of Tai Chi, the president of the association, refuses to write the letter as IP does not agree with the other grandmaster's opinions on Bruce Lee's actions. Wang wants Bruce to stop accepting non-Chinese students into his dojo and also to withdraw his English book on martial arts from publication. The other grandmasters consider Bruce Lee to be arrogant and not a spokesperson for Chinese Kung Fu. Bruce Lee is also attending the karate tournament to challenge the other grandmasters. IP says that Bruce wants a wider following for Chinese Kung Fu and finds nothing wrong with that. After a brief fight with Wan where they test each other's Kung Fu, he leaves. While leaving the school after a meeting with the principal refuses to admit Ching without the letter of recommendation. IP chances upon the daughter of Wan, Yona, Vanda Margraf, being bullied by a rival cheerleader, Becky, Grace Englert, and her male friends. IP saves her and escorts her home, with Becky accidentally cutting herself with a pair of scissors. IP tells Wan that Yona was not wrong to defend herself, but Wan rebukes him by claiming that IP, as a foreigner, cannot understand the tension between whites and Chinese in America. Just before IP leaves, Wan accuses him of using his daughter to get the letter and challenges him to a fight for it. The fight is disrupted by an earthquake, and Wan tells IP they will finish their fight at the upcoming Mid-Autumn Festival. IP refuses, explaining that he merely escorted his daughter home for her safety and leaves. Meanwhile, Becky lies to her parents, claiming that Yona attacked her. Her father Andrew Walters, Andrew Lane, who is an officer of the Immigration and Naturalization Service, is pressured into holding the association responsible and deporting all Chinese associated with them. Meanwhile, Hartman, Van Ness Wu, a staff sergeant in the United States Marines, attempts to convince Barton Geddes, Scott Adkins, the gunnery sergeant, to incorporate Chinese martial arts into their hand-to-hand combat training. Geddes proves that the Marines' current karate training is superior by asking him to fight the Marines' karate instructor, Colin Frater, Chris Collins, who defeats Hartman. Hartman later manages to convince the commanding officer about doing so and is instructed to film the Mid-Autumn Festival happening at the Association for Research, which upsets Geddes. Geddes asks Frater to challenge the grandmasters at the festival, defeating a few of them until IP interferes and defeats him badly. Meanwhile, Juan, who was supposed to be present at the festival, is arrested by the immigration officers. Upon seeing Frater defeated, Geddes barges into the association to find out where Juan is kept and uses his strength and karate prowess to brutally defeat all the grandmasters present. He then threatens Walters into releasing Juan into Marine custody before bringing Juan into the camp to fight him. Due to a tip-off by Billy, a subordinate of Walters and student of Lee, the association is evacuated by the time the INS conducts its raid. Lee provides refuge for the association, earning their respect. At the camp, Juan and Geddes fight, with Juan at first able to match Geddes, but he is eventually overwhelmed and seriously injured. Juan is taken to the hospital, where an emotional IP calls Fat Bo to reveal his cancer. Fat Bo then angrily forces Ching to talk to his father, after many previous refusals. The older IP apologizes to his son for striking him and promises to teach Ching Kung Fu when he returns to Hong Kong. Hartman brings IP to the Marines, and he triumphantly defeats Geddes after a long, strenuous fight. Juan prepares the referral letter for IP, but IP turns it down, having decided against moving to America. IP returns to Hong Kong and accepts that Ching likes martial arts. A weary but determined IP instructs his son to film him as he demonstrates Wing Chun on a wooden dummy. Lee pays respect to IP at his funeral. IP succumbed to his cancer in 1972 at the age of 79, and that the Marines officially incorporated Chinese Kung Fu into their training by inviting Chinese martial artists to train them in 2001. Movies about the legendary martial artist Ip Man have become their own small industry. Wong Kar-wai's The Grandmaster is the best of the recent works about the Foshan-born icon, but Wilson Yip's Ip Man series is tough to beat for charm and verve. Yip started his career as an irreverent genre reupholsterer, making violent, punk genre films, the most famous of which is like 1998's Spy Zombie. In 2005 he met and began working with Donnie Yen and settled into a more conventional rhythm and style, his mise-en-scene broadening to take in the balletic performance of his star. When they made the first Ip Man, with the incredible Sammo Hung handling fight choreography, it became an instant sensation. The film treated Ip Man as a humble folk hero who liberated the people of his province by teaching them to defend themselves with Wing Chun-style kung fu from greedy bosses and the invading Japanese army in the lead-up to the Second World War. A sequel was rushed into production that featured Hung in a supporting role and took even more money at the box office. By the time Ip Man 3 hit theaters, grossing $157 million against a $36 million budget, the movie's formula had solidified into a showcase for some of the world's most famous mixed martial artists. Ip Man 4, the finale, is apparently going to be the last time Yen dons the familiar black cassock to play Ip Man, and Yip orchestrates a fittingly spectacular finish to the saga. When we last left Yip and writer Edmund Wong's version of Ip Man, his wife had died of cancer, leaving him to raise his son, yet he, by himself. Man's fortunes decrease further when he learns that he too has been diagnosed with cancer. It would kill him in 1972, which means he only has a limited time to ensure that his son's life takes the right turning. He flies to America at the behest of his most famous student Bruce Lee, Kwok Kwan Chan, and uses the opportunity to look for a good school for his boy. Immediately, trouble finds him. He's called to a meeting of the heads of martial arts schools in America, thinking he's just being shown hospitality as the world's most renowned Wing Chun practitioner. But it turns out they're all furious about Bruce Lee teaching Kung Fu to Westerners. The head of the Tai Chi school, Wan Zonghua, Yu Wu, demands Ip Man put a muzzle on Lee, and he refuses, believing that everyone should be able to practice the art form if they so choose. Their disagreement almost comes to blows. Things go no more smoothly for Ip Man in the coming days. His visit to a prestigious school ends with the admissions officer saying that short of a $10,000 donation or a letter of recommendation from other prosperous Chinese immigrants, like Wan Zonghua, for instance, his son will never get into a decent American school. While he's touring the grounds, he notices Wan Zonghua's daughter Yona, Vanda Margraf, being bullied by a white cheerleader, Grace Englert, and comes to her rescue, which starts the Tai Chi master on the path of recognizing Ip Man as a more principled man than he initially gave him credit. They'll need each other in the coming days, because when that cheerleader tells her parents she was attacked by Chinese people, they involve INS and the military in their efforts to try and oust the Chinese from the area. As it happens, there's a gunnery sergeant named Barton Geddes, Scott Adkins, who's been itching for a way to put the local Chinese in their place, and this is all the pretext the virulent racist needs to start cracking skulls. Yip's Ip Man films are constructed like Golden Age Hollywood musicals or step-up movies, and as they were never going to be perfect history, 4 movies come and go without a single mention of Ip Man's illegitimate child. This is a wise and welcome decision. There's little plot, a new character is introduced, and then there's a jaw-dropping sparring scene. The great Yuen Woo-ping steps in to replace Sammo Hung after Ip Man 2, and his work here is typically jaw-dropping, as beautiful as it is nerve-wracking. Yuen Woo-ping also directed this year's similarly rich Master Z, Ip Man Legacy, following Zhang Jin's character from Ip Man 3, and is planning a sequel as we speak, a small comfort to fans of these films' winning aesthetics and gorgeous choreography. Having already traded blows in show-stopping duels with Sammo Hung, Mike Tyson, Darren and Shalavi among others, Donnie Yen shares lovingly orchestrated fight scenes with martial artist Chris Collins, Wu, and finally Adkins in the finale. There's also room for Chan's Bruce Lee to show off in a back alley brawl with some racist karate experts. Chan's Lee impression is truly wonderful, perfectly capturing his swagger and his signature body language. He's almost charismatic enough to steal a little of Yen's thunder. Yen, the Fred Astaire of Kung Fu, is finally beginning to look somewhat his age, which adds poignancy to his performance and adds no little extra tension to his fight scenes. Can he still defeat his opponents as handily as he used to? His scene with Adkins, especially, is a nail-biter. Adkins isn't usually framed by other directors to emphasize his relative enormity, as so much of his screen persona revolves around him being underestimated by his opponents. Here he's a tank, swift and sledgehammer hard, and you genuinely worry about Yen's body standing up to Adkins' legwork and formidable fists. It's one of the few times in the 4 Ip Man movies that it feels like the filmmakers aren't stacking the decks in their hero's favor. To go with the film's musical dramatic structure, Yip and Johnny 2's regular cinematographer Su Kung Cheng create a world alive with brilliant color and ornate design. This feels at times like a Stanley Donen or Lee Han-chang movie, with precise framing of weightless bodies in wonderfully lit presentational spaces. Yip's maturation from his early Category 3 days to one of the most dependable directors of martial arts has been most rewarding, because he's realized that being a more serious director doesn't mean losing vibrancy. The first 2 Ip Man movies had somber, reserved color palettes, gray and brown to match the depressive mood of pre- and post-war China. In the finale, Yen's signature black clothing can't help but stand out against the neon set design. Yip seems like he's having as much fun with every single production element here, as opposed to just saving his energy for the death-defying combat sequences. Kenji Kawai's music is still too emphatic for its own good, but when the dancing's this good, the tune hardly matters. The Ip Man movies have always been nationalistic triumphs, with Yen as the savior of the downtrodden, protecting China from the tyrannical Japanese in the first film, and then from Americans, and from the avaricious character they brought to China in the latest two. Finale leans hard into the series' anti-racist message, turning Adkins' sadistic sergeant into a mouthpiece for Trump-era bigotry. Adkins is the best actor among the villains. The sadistic cheerleader and her family seem to be reading their lines phonetically. Slowly the enmity the other masters feel toward Ip Man dissolves because there's greater threat to their way of life than Lee. It's a clumsily delivered but deeply felt message of cooperation in trying times, and surely there's no bad time for such a thing. Through 4 movies now, Yen's beatific kung fu master has taken punches for every kind of person, helping others by staying his best self in a violent world and only resorting to violence when it's absolutely necessary. Yen's Ip Man will be sorely missed if this is indeed his last match, but at least he walked into the sunset on an exuberant and heartfelt note. All good things must come to an end. It is genuinely hard to end these long arcing stories like this, and while Ip Man 4, the finale, takes us to some fairly familiar places, it successfully ends the story on an effective yet predictable note. Ip Man's life remains unchanged after his wife's death, but he and his son are slowly drifting apart. To seek a better future for his son, Ip Man, Donnie Yen, decides to travel to the US only to find the stable, peaceful life abroad is only skin deep. Underneath lies a deep-rooted racial discrimination that is far worse than he has expected. Ip Man re-examines his position and ponders on the reason he took up martial arts in the beginning. Not anything that would get confused with high art. Ip Man 4, the finale, jumps somewhat into the origins of the one and only Bruce Lee while he was establishing Chinese martial arts in America with decent results. It gets a little broad and over the top at times, but it's also kind of refreshing to see a Chinese-produced film have the white American characters be cartoonishly villainous when it comes to setting up this story. In many ways, Ip Man 4, the finale, really does play as a love letter to the entire story. With director Wilson Yip still at the helm as he has been throughout the entire franchise, we get a film that is consistent in tone and in feel as it unfurls its narrative for us. It's not the kind of story where we're supposed to wonder what's going to happen at the end, rather it's about getting closer with an iconic character that we've grown attached to. It all makes for a very smooth way to go out. The production design is solid and the action set pieces are quite good, but this installment is actually a little lighter on action than expected and heavier on the politics of the time and the struggle that Chinese immigrants faced with racism. Sure, it's interesting and entertaining, but as an audience it's not necessarily what we can form, even though Donnie Yen, now 56, can still move with the best of them when he's unleashed on the screen. Outside of Donnie Yen's sage master IP, the acting here tends to be a little over the top, but that's not a bad thing. The film paints most white people as xenophobic racists and leans into that idea pretty hard, but it also provides some counterbalance to the Chinese characters who are all trying to find a way to thrive in this new land, even while at each other's throats trying to maintain traditions that they can't help but feel are being stripped away from them. Yen never really gets enough credit on this side of the ocean for being a genuine movie star who can carry a picture not only with screen presence and charisma but with honest character work. Otherwise, while fans of Hong Kong cinema may recognize a few familiar faces in the film, the other primary face in the film is Scott Adkins as the maniacal drill sergeant Barton Geddes, who was instant that karate was better than Chinese kung fu. He scowled and chewed the scenery at every turn to the point that it was damn near comedic, but that's also why it kind of works. We never doubt that his bad guy is going down, we just have to enjoy the ride to ultimately watch it happen. When it comes down to it, the thing about Ip Man 4, the finale is this. It's not the kind of film that's going to convert any people into being fans of the franchise, however for those who are it's a nice and effective way to end this overall story. Could it have been done better? Maybe, but sometimes with these beloved franchises maybe taking the safe approach that we knew was coming is ultimately the better way to go. It ain't auteur cinema, but it's fun and delivers the right message in a neat and tidy package. Is there much more that any of us actually want? Let me be honest about two things. I have only seen a few kung fu films in my life, and that I have enjoyed every bit of this cleaned up version of the legendary Wing Chun master in all three films. I have yet to see the third one completely, but I guess I'll enjoy it just as much, this one being the best among the bunch. This one seems to be the most colorful too, in terms of its production design. In every kung fu film, there seems to be numerous references amongst critics worldwide as to whom is the best, which one has served the best fight choreography in film, which ones had the best interpretation, as much as there are endless amounts of heroes so to speak that enabled the flexibility of the human condition against the skill of every muscle that each martial artist is able to inculcate and retrieve time and time again in memory. Martial arts definitely is no longer confined within the backdrop of Asian comedy, nor of Chinese cinema alone. There are British and American counterparts that seem to emulate the humility and the skill of someone dancing in the air against an opponent of what Kung Fu has successfully delivered across the globe, domination. Let's get back to my second point. I have truly enjoyed this final Ip Man collaboration between Wilson Yip and Donnie Yen. Choreography-wise it's so easy to get trapped into it. You have Yen who, at 56 is able to depict an aging Ip Man, and yet he can fight like he was 12 years ago in Foshan. In 2008, the first film came out as a breath of fresh air, perhaps as intended by Yip and Yen, who is also trained in Wing Chun, among a many number of martial arts he's learned throughout his career, where we see a humble martial arts master whose primary goal in life is to teach martial arts. He is initially showcased as wealthy, as he truly did come from a wealthy family. And from there we see his journey, as well as a brief history lesson, of how the bravado of the Japanese would then succumb their little town into a coal-enriched yet apathetic town where traitors and the weak coincide. Luckily for Ip Man, he is there to prove that there is more to him beating mere mortals, but that he is the symbol of national pride pf their town. We would then move on to the second film on how he and his family, despite his passions in keeping his martial arts business afloat, would struggle to fight one problem to another. The third I believe tackles how he is yet to prove the worth of Wing Chun's existence in British-ruled Hong Kong. The same would occur in the finale, except this time we see Ip Man at the twilight of his years. His wife had passed away in the previous film, and in here he learns that he too has been diagnosed with cancer, which would eventually kill him in 1972. Dire times would force him to send his son to a proper school and life in America, albeit his son's protest to follow his footsteps into the family business. However, in the late 60s, similar to our farmers here, through the rapid change of industrialism, martial arts is considered a commodity for the rich. For some reasons we only see the focus on this son of his, but perhaps we can save that for a different Ip Man spin-off. He accepts an invitation from Bruce Lee, a former student of his, to attend a martial arts-related event in the US, to which he initially declines, but given the circumstances he accepts, in the hopes of using this connection to find a better school for his son. He meets an Americanized Chinaman who introduces him to the head of the Chinese Benevolent Association, Wang Zonghua, played ruefully by Wu Yu, who informs him that they have been upset by Lee's decision to open their school to American students. Ip Man agrees with Lee, further putting his chances of getting his son a fitting application, as most schools in San Francisco require a referral from the CBA before they could accept a Chinese student. A chance encounter puts Ip Man closer once again to Wang as he saves his daughter Yona from wannabe punks played to AT via the script's bland English dialogue by Grace Englert and company. Soon, the military gets involved as Wing Chun tries to get center stage via former F4 member Vanis Wu as Hartman, a Marines officer who tries to include Kung Fu as part of their martial arts training, aside from the existing karate. Although both principles do not require violence, for some reason a simple call and recall would indicate that the Japanese were the villains in the first film. This time they are ending it with mixed Japanese and some racist commander in the form of Scott Adkins, a well-known British martial arts practitioner, who finally gets a role that enlivens his skill and at the same time elevates the villains Ip Man gets to beat this time. He is broad and angry, yet he fights like he was born to, literally, bend Yen and Wu's knees with style and bravado. Edmund Wang's script is both dense and poetic, as it gives Danny Chan Kwok Kwan more screen time, as the eponymous Bruce Lee. The fight scene against the backdrop of the neon lights in the alley showcases a particularly colorful time in both Lee and Ip Man's life as they both struggle to put their individual identities across the globe, while keeping their personal lives afloat. The battle during the Chinese festival would serve as one of the most enthralling features of this film choreographically wise. Truly, all Ip Man films have served to the best of what they aim to be, delightful in its simplified plot of a hero who is able to withstand conquests and bullies. In what it failed to completely showcase, however, is that its biggest bully isn't just the whole world, but the ones that have tried to shut down all of Hong Kong, and even the world through the disease that shouldn't have spread, if only they managed to listen, much like the members of the CBA. Perhaps then the journey of Ip Man, as seen on all four films, would be worth seeing with utmost respect for the people it serves to put in good light. As a rabid fan of Asian cinema, and martial arts in general, I've been keeping track of the Ip Man films ever since they started coming out in the early 2000s. While most people knew of Bruce Lee and all of the countless followers he created, very few people in American cinema knew about the man who trained him and started him on the road to greatness. 2008's Ip Man changed that with a huge bang when Donnie Yen portrayed the iconic Wing Chun master in his own film, effectively shooting him back up the superstardom ladder with it and the 2010 sequel. Donnie Yen is already an incredible Hong Kong, and American, action star with many forms of martial arts under his belt, but he actually learned Wing Chun specifically for these films, essentially using the muscle memory and copious martial arts training of his past to let him learn a new form of fighting for the camera. While Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do relies heavily on the Wing Chun basics, its final form is truly a creation of its master. I was a bit disappointed with Ip Man 3, and felt the creators were milking the franchise a bit, especially when you add in a fight between Mike Tyson and Donnie Yen. It just felt a bit cloying and only there to change things up a bit. However, it still wasn't a bad film, so I was more than excited to see Ip Man 4, the finale, and doubly so when I saw that Scott Adkins was playing the big evil villain of the film. Scott is easily one of the most physically built and skilled acrobatic Caucasian martial artists out there today, and has been criminally underrated as a blockbuster action star. He's paid his dues with Van Damme, Michael J. White and countless other 80s and 90s action stars, but sadly hasn't really been able to take off full tilt with his own fan base. That being said, anytime Scott is on screen he just steals the show with his physicality, and has made him one of my favorite practitioners of the art as well as being of the best cinema fighters I've seen in 20 years. Ip Man 4, the finale really is the finale. I won't spoil the ending, but the creators made certain that this was the last of the franchise, giving Ip Man, Donnie Yen, a great send-off in the final moments of the movie. Also, it was one of the most diverse of the franchise in regards to its fight scenes. The first two films had Donnie being a one-man wrecking crew against everyone else, but this one splits up the fight scenes between several action stars. Bruce Lee, Danny Kwok Kwan Chan, makes an appearance in several spots, and we get to see him do some street fighting, something he was famous for in real life, early on in the movie. Also, Scott himself gets to pummel a few of the good guys throughout the movie as the film's over-the-top caricature villain before he finally faces off against the inevitable Ip Man battle. Multiple subplots are also at play in the film. The first and foremost being that Ip Man has to travel to America to see about getting his son into an overseas school due to getting kicked out for fighting. An invitation from his pupil Bruce Lee piques his interest, and soon he's headed over to San Francisco's Chinatown to check out the schools around there. However, he finds out that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, as he comes up against a whole host of troubles. The first is that he's not wildly received by the old kung fu masters who have set up shop in Chinatown. Bruce Lee has been opening up the world of Chinese martial arts to non-Chinese, back then a big no-no, and they blame Ip Man for not reining him in. To make matters worse, Ip Man needs a letter of recommendation from the Chinese Benevolent Association to get his son into a good private school. They would act as financial backing in case of non-payment by individuals, and the head of the CBA just so happens to be the head of the Kung Fu masters who are off at him for letting Bruce Lee teach his martial arts to the masses. Simultaneously, we have a build-up to the ultimate end boss. Martial arts movies play out like a video game in some respects. A Chinese staff sergeant in the U.S. Marines, my family's choice for military service to be precise, wants to incorporate some of the Chinese martial arts styles into the training regiment for soldiers, but is stymied by the racist, ignorant, brutish drill sergeant Barton Geddes, Scott Adkins, who sneers at the seemingly weaker fighting style. As Ip Man tries to stick to his principles and find his son a new school, he has to battle racism, exclusion by his own kind, and eventually standing up for them all when a new threat looms on the horizon in the form of Sergeant Geddes, culminating in one of the most savage and brutal fights of the franchise. Ip Man 4, the finale, is a good step up from the mediocre Ip Man 3 that debuted 5 years ago. The fights are more diverse, the cast allows for some better visual fights, and despite some pretty heavy jingoism, is more than a blast to watch. I noticed off the bat that the jingoism was painted pretty stinking heavy against the Americans, which I don't have a problem with. Martial arts movies thrive off of making caricatures out of everything, and especially when you consider that we're seeing Americans through the lens of a Chinese filter. Scott Adkins' character is so over the top that it's like watching Colonel Guile from Street Fighter, and some of the racism against the Chinese is laid on pretty thick. It's not untrue that they were mistreated pretty badly back then, but Chinese filter comes across as almost comic bookish, if you know what I mean. Despite that, the fight scenes are spectacular and much more intimate this go around. Instead of the huge crowds of villains that Ip Man fought off in the first and second film, it's more one-on-one. The fight with Bruce and the huge karate thug in the alley is a treat to watch, and the end fight with Scott Adkins is amazing. Adkins utilizes his extremely vicious and joint-oriented hard martial arts to great effect, allowing Ip Man to be forced into using a more brutal form of his infamous Wing Chun. In fact, the final fight is a complete delight when you realize that this is a literal fight with no rules and no limits on both sides. Instead of having Ip Man defeat gunnery Sergeant Geddes with apparent ease, it's a literal dogfight, with both sides taking massive damages before one finally wins. It's nasty, it's not as flowery as some of the other Ip Man battles, but it's ridiculously satisfying. Since the first Ip Man movie was released in 2008, I have been a fan of the series. Over the holidays, I finally had some free time to watch movies with my family, and Ip Man 4 was obviously at the top of my list. Although most of the audiences in the theater, mostly Chinese, greatly enjoyed the movie, I left the theater with some mixed feelings. Personally, I like the previous installment of the series better than this finale, from the script to action choreography. As a cinephile, I never watched the Ip Man series as documentaries. In this fictional movie, director Wilson Yip disappoints me by using the same storytelling formula one more time. There were many opportunities in the movie, such as Ip Man's culture shock in America or Bruce Lee's teaching experiences, that the director could have made more interesting. However, the director and the screenwriters failed to use their creativity. I merely see the themes of discrimination against white people and Chinese nationalism in Ip Man 4. In the movie, the main character keeps promoting the idea of using Chinese martial arts as a vessel to change others' prejudice against Chinese people. What does he actually promote besides sending the evil white guys to hospital? Although the backbone of the story is such a cliché, I enjoyed watching the parent-child relationships and the family issues the kung fu masters encounter in the movie. These subplots really resonate with me as an educator and a parent. Parent and child relational problems have always been the most common issues in many families. What matters the most are self-reflection and love. Children don't come to the world with an operating manual. Like yin and yang, parenting is a learning experience for both parents and children. A good parent should have a big heart and an open mind like a true kung fu master that embraces different values and opinions. In terms of the action scenes, I still greatly appreciate Master Yun Wuping's creative work. The fight scene between Ip Man and Tai Chi Master Wan Zonghua is the highlight of the movie. The interactions between Wing Chun Chi Sao, sticking hand, and Tai Chi pushing hand is quite entertaining and visually appealing. I much appreciated that the scene demonstrates courtesy and integrity of both characters, which are the essence of traditional martial arts. However, as a Wing Chun practitioner, I am tired of seeing Wing Chun being repeatedly presented as a combat sport in the spar fights of the movie. As the finale of the Ip Man series, Ip Man 4 further misleads the audience that spar fighting is the only way to appreciate martial arts. Unlike the prequels, almost all fight scenes in Ip Man 4 are one-on-one stage fights. Wing Chun is a self-defense system. It is designed to effectively protect ourselves in our everyday social settings, such as coffee shops, subway trains, elevators, and etc. Among the 5 movies in the Ip Man series and including Master Z, Ip Man 4 is surely not my most favorite one. As the last martial arts movie in one's career, Jet Li's Fearless is a flawless exit. I think Donnie Yen deserves a better choice than this one to be his last kung fu epic. Despite this, I still feel that there are plenty of scenes worth watching, and would suggest Ip Man 4 for action movie lovers and kung fu practitioners.
Sernschistkar Wufmochnet Servalivumnschar Frofnheim Betzeichgesdune, Ngischaupthros Nies Veitnelfbarit the Leiflotsia, Setjapsit. Get by Wufmochtal Zahibit Nopsin that Sjosterabas versus Nainot Nitha. Descassel Alphas Elrif Sealesh, Rerux no Naivum Stral Schramptalatze. No Gerviftum am Anilers Serofnheim Bit, Easer Time Gedufnen Series Nime in the Zivum Waffenlamba. Arrestan, Serdevala, Sneerstevbus, Spashifachsistas, Snidasloshus Edgerveranis Vassartgasterbilvitka Fosnazit. Mutsis Sneffit Fosses in Ushnu. Stiaf States no Nana Rarofnam in his niece Gafotsama, Slokir Bitgelna. Stralshram Gashir Bostia Winlo eating it afrops that's Nada eats deal simmer their Frofnam bit, Series Nam Bait Vailanifitze. Even mit was der Frops in the drops that macht es edit Nazir bildet ich mir eben naschen Junges verdracht mea, Ernschist garf naschen was it, Ervawa. Stralshram on shitterst was nasa either stu, Sert Gerich thop vader getn in a isidurks dertsne met nies sit that the day sheer bestamma. Ngelich beilojivne in echters net auxid neihinge schuch bischjasne, neihinge gits, was ich naschen Jungs in the scharish ne Even met wat Ella had ze al was no worst time ich jasne en I'm benieuwd nies jaffet. Girl videoxing if boom New Year's time gay sheer bail ear glotja, sneeze en scha eat was merchne. Sneinig ben het zo jaf nerfits this year met other time move moch wurstig el namne button en het drag give bewaide snurrig duke. Nerslush net snurrig thop burf snurrig skingen er losing is nurrig. Nga in het gel. Oh we naam get air pot into the floor with it macht noise nerslush. Vallen in schel für Fleißrat zum Bezirlambo. Seal my finem nes ushin macht zum in the psi of asmel barfbon schiller blash nitneri. Snurich ben erdig den as aim the win as a really salt busy. Even men neichen is time move moch getsushi in my fin that special schiller blash nerich ben gestaubt josnea. Ja schilch bis das sehr ort sit ben opgab bedla. Wat heb sa hust sagt ja wo wie ingenes ja sip nummer biloschka ich seit do. Hobby psinash snake sidish after the shnish distal services there all shram psinash nisuva is da in number speaker gerich name. Even men Of name ben in Mazillan shine zinash nil beef bjaupt snake and shanemerks it was me the sealery map. Heed of it day gritzu yet life sir down nearks in the earth carried it. Hervawa. Nitzer near om dam vedig earth carried it. Sis near skingish dicht seal sur bro agarim and asher schlocks na me basish us. Even men the seed and uster pain emmer worth. Master om no willing rofing last year or smies and gizu ya beams now besist bain the slow word carried. Even mon skiffs in the Sears nemikot set series name be each shower venya. Laughinis it. He forgot your ochniska ustbergs and marfilan if sin the rep series sit but nemots in the savior but galayon surf. Sngelif skim must the word eighth it fell out. Even with the ocean ear. See nash some. Heard eighth and this is nada eat but some was law. Selam vapast that they'll save baza rof name ben il my fam thups even staw with master must the heel now fat. See the law other Series sit van I fin it beha. Stien it in his lathush nit sealers a weevum nine bit surfaceness. Ngaf set I seal silicate deer stit up. Slot ab nine bear that even must set your alf set on stit. Each sign stit. Sne wheel now no rof up sich demized visheim nit gests das thup thup. Stiaf god lord a listit. See nerich bethup see take nish grass here nak deef it nine bang if I fit it snit. Stas thup nos the milo and its lower one thup ya Florida lissit sit that's alley we know galit deal because it yafon off with gafnik. Nash new semifnis if I'm rofolder broming is use nit trophy but nine bang ala. Skafat air gist all shram drah dis nair op notion it's a shivil mirskis this is always nick that. Ngezim is nick that dogs thup yafna in it. Stau with deers des ela in the gath it are rukshduich and it surf thup yafet. No roams dick. Mlef nikas net surf and the fought off nine but it's niliv vis dark duich but it's nick. Nai roix it them near omstam nearly cash gaps ras nies jaffet. Stat japsit. Nie mata one nu fishik up gemacht so ma zes arches machers lef see nasht up. Net gabil da bieder de deer simmer with the dursh nut on stick. Get theater not else see nasht that snake am as a seer with them as neck. Heard off deer simmer flag loner knish out else that at boss de voas seer gerich snick that dogs. Herslif zinash divas nellerth snicker among a sir whether the snick be no wheel shaps in it. If your reverat sticker nikim vafav arth sivum stral shrum. Theo milbarf bavahno dash do. Snicker and mate snake eva hanging it cedar disney so mazogish that but fasironia. Stau was salt menedroms it. Mazogish eva hater must yaps in it. Stiafo shiver that must surf so I'll take Servidrom rust yaffet. Wagas revaf did we base that earth nine bear lady man morph buffets the gazilon if it. Rof nine bit. Sash nerfet was yafolder bnish devast some with van owning it in a moch. See like nish gras from rof and in a sour hanas mul earthun in a wall with a bangin night seal ocean it. Nyach no ze haben julkske. Mas is here what habit sahi. Look soon and us sitting off and it's lopus nerf to hit gets it sash nine beset. Why I sing it out for willing me sit that's in su. Snick that dogs. See they can drop nish grosslers chitter. Snarn get. Says here without the match sit up. Search loss surf nimish erwin ersh the business last there all shram see nash the must air broke no snow. Says surf be but sever serious the limmer fsiosh seal my fam. Sneerum so in that nish gross fast see nash the. Scaps here must make wide if a gal lie elf sivum there all shram. Sop net demis law either but lip of a he will say neslomas. Sis I'm with it all shrums if die steel serving it aller from it if our officer time move moch with a heavy but snip I was such the AB sit with a hen. Slow divin up na me non was ning ik I bosh nine offset guide with. Looks the verf look goes in us sit like na she so sit nil end up seen ash den morph na she nemek er verda los die nine beser obser I'm game. Name hanging near honor from nine bemail bin. One give minute cap. See nash non it's all shrums see nash vedlor with banging it one ips a heel surf. Nice nash nip ash but as vehu sir time move moch gloid out v serial lau on z as it surf. Slobash but so ho hut snake buzz mach gise. Dasser that in our nurksi watnes is our good that las nafi. Herva. Red my results it like ash dit nice and ash success nerf nice sister what did I see in wisne. Sarsnes is gich beeld sur bob wich zimmer van de shit of nene. Niet af voor flight getting it dus doet ook sister what knows in us sing it by basis dicker and most of ash dit zeggen I'm bit and geep some of net surf. My van de elf that was law ourself bustle beslom. What I've nine bill bit of an eight snake the fast see feeling out feet of the verse the correct boss did the was my foot say even with our sag look at the wee film of but stick fast mit ox was law. Even in the nailer, foul layer nerve some if so we hang it must. Get off fierce masud me his stick unit. Stop slorves in this nerve ben a skim. Nice now cocky nice. Heel sur. Sirarts in the scatter vest new ships knees the off with bus dilps no sit the. Sly no we're vet snake over knick our name no wing e be not that's my fush surf. Sneeze the off those drugger in this ash nerve with the service some with the nose of it. Was law. Even with the snimon off and the fadness there but. Na ye not. Na am bing of it. Sash nerve with the salads of sit and nurse names are there with the. Ngedna e liops no well. Elon if it's a eeler real if it. Off name bit. Sir ye no ninnies fazer out feminists have with van apes at lobs that are either and shit character via fam van no mediums in it. Eat like as if the wash it's late such the nearks nas it ox mashed in it. It asking ape that. Seb knife no as if the blessed law fuck yes this will be in a billiard's a heel that's the. Sir arts and the scat sees now and see there that's a knife net out wish look My knife the suits it ipsy. Arts and the scatters up called besetted ever nail and American nips in it. Yeah, just right last sit all sham the ach get abercat likes and it like wheel as if some with no wheels easy dogs. Life with vanilla will be given yelps of snick that dogs that Oceana was sealed by neck. Elon if it. Her off nine bases did ask in the room so I was some life that business all what's the. Herva. Step but buzzing if schneesh just ready and one and elf did but left such the. Na ye not in the sash gam new step off and it out we no wheel ships. Step but sash nerf and ye glimmer of there you could left net. Earth name bit of this no besit dip bezoa. Times the van sheer failures simmer phone off the. Skassie heb nash new when I love a sailor with noch dish seal sur blau. Make it from it off from rofuin and earl metal taps if an erst strahl sham say book na ear memo summon is uilshness. Smlife see the field of sips nash new ner lilo sky eat up. Slipes her nas strahl sham was morphine and the words in the sky. Nicker in it. Ngach ngahol bedarknin eider was in a yenot. Och is net netnes athust and that the word almedart service if back I've mehing it shield with gaffa. Life was in her time nash nukenach guide their stroke na yenot no ngap stuich the wet chnesh name beside in it in athust. Sent ear gis no renommed arts nemmet near stuch name with labo in eminus nicker and it'll be we fear if. That ear geeser well off sel nich with velana eel serve voin will be some low. There's na heat no stealer in that I ngemach did arts it's in the servets life name be vak arshing it be nip va. Lauren is nister all shamne. Aminus and jeven after by rosette. Stial look nid of bits first they'll be but the gaps here some that the ways through we do. Small throw fawn on his set. And I am bevainers in that spire. Yeah, be sit was her mammoth galsham. And this a lichen I made in love it. It arps fatten the shit seizes the earth lore when the vina. Ngach fell on I dash it darsh fat no with the. Laura wall hat such as a elop sigips that's it. Herva was it was shield eel mcus life that on it. Seal of nests out knock nights the whistle be so hurry have it all daffelt miss the nil reality but may it over set with this verse vesm life name below. Healers. Sao wheel the fire bear och life sit was er stiefing larth net some with the nose verse the wolves have seen ash den years blood ab. 12 as val on surf bring it beach blau. Well get sark as it is net dallosh divin er it the beslogarts thop bits of els na mich bana eel thop ne mastel for lach gillerlich is bis es ich was sheila in this del 9 of the bars gab but snake and east yaff. Heel surp simen off by it. Mas near ksom now gauch nice nights week this. Get out net net thop zit berks ngobnem de. Whatever net last the seen so ne Heeler who's no so we else yaff he. Here get it arpsy. Mast sit die bestek name business with stevel at mast mesit and Alexis Navalnet at law rustic ilnafu. Ern shit garps der all shram shitter bnoin lawa. Snick that dogs from rof and their name here mustn't seen if I should skim the wing in area and mast sit. Left surf and this nilla with seen if I should that they can it walk here net loch of missin ear myself. Snilla over out your on which lopus nerf thub with law. He'd our this game or fdasa. Ngin eerst der alle shram red wat erop ze uf moch duch nieuws saars du her sefas nirama. Nimbrach oops and Iver memrofe avschnitzers dekes arsnash nubs at vovness de gerecht limit. Nuis. Een het mag net rilgen zeer gab galea chilling it nilps berks het avies deus delps nach bieben al maar van al your odds is wesi sing al was negus no were self naam bestig bersnaichnis naishdi. Snedust zien as dit beskedig get of a babies en maar flora furor auch your works is nerf nice en is looks to ums en shake bang it if en us sing it was is nice sing it of brother. Heel op zeer genaam bit. Snedust snicker en most looks are in the boat necessity lab das ban it vehet then miss rof nu. Wie you wab biel furveel. Was nou, en she is so sitting of end up zien ash dit wat het Mrs. Uders nu en ash zaneker en menes die me. Nas her volks er hebben ja fitnesskennig zin is wie was bohan. Spas gees nights makers in de week dat snel gedeeld in each de wood. Zou je het never de dealers er alle schramben net doet. Ze wat een duitser mofa. Heel sur maar van sheest of in de spas gee. Van ips naam bitner fit dat wees niet op spaher dat ze van us in as ik of die zien al ups en zeer masrof. Ster the feet on the this nixis der all shram. Muzzler sud nivish nesh dip I ruthers. Racer mafrausterlimus. Sa eatskis the nervoa. Since it being my featherness best of sihwell off its asterps nas city block. Agarim if aln looks or parf both nas is misser of loops master as. Wish these neves niche nyan nimihlich gilosh nevidoshdu. Ersnach thoots on god nips a hush die that's nearly hurrying in him life savior ben the air what's hap the fauzi. Series if it allows that then I'm base you must sit basket. Elan if an erged miss it. Nach lor shitter bnisnitsis is nashing you with her with work but they say was look as feel of better th. Than us milbarf no gaffis look arts do. 12 since zips there all shrams in a weakness and shaps it ups it. Heel my fsin a ihan on life nickas it novum net do you. Nice earth faith there one shine well miss it see at the plotrom ring it even mehstrom there at that work but earth see. En I am bare feel like al. Das noach die when it's er strom nice get at the bad age der nilch goes in nice lot of learn machs net do zien if I should do it over bedaife. En the cellier se fear bezel opzet. Enerst ze he see we're in marfnet. Heel my feet law wummer from mach de dealer stiese. He flops that sich was shielshin is he. Stral shram sties de se fel ne log gary marf zu her time stral shram of my high see where. Rux it out nerl zie stral shram ver money nemming am. Nash new neers beslaat zo. Nee net bij jou de nesnis is spijer. Sharp with her bezit I make lift surf. Stien het is I thuisne. Nash of no is reflaucht zo ik geld af niet een en I'm bengish in het gif bedistel bezig gesiet fifte. Hoe nee vahui. Stoos net paar stekes easy was de zou we vergaar ook. Nee je not net bij een slow nieuws de share balk naam billen af zit de originelers twa. Sneeuw pnikas jam beschrijft dekstel. Nashine maat. Wel, het zarg beter wil deel of seskes se hoef mocht over en nog ben het snekker een is nice no mas velix in de edel en we had daily met mis dat strafbers naich nikker en men shitter buried. No am in a scene ash varon. Jede mag nije wat aars gab en dit of naf nikker ngalo en ze eel in effect stral shram. Hier mem in ik amaas ne maas vier stuur net ik lach nieuws lo bezit stral shram stiet dat los am meer velix het snek en shit nik nem we had we edel beskelf het lo ben het keeps het was sorry was na myself ne het is nam zijn shitter burst nit uit met das no stu. Maf ne vergaar ook jaf het met verse no stu. Het met zim het zit out lor op skitter ngam is ner fer ceremony bet smisser. Maf uf moch gewen. Ja zit schaders de was mersne. Hoe slof verlacht somebody bet smissen op zit. Schnappen am het ben even op zit. Stam zet zich de origineel as I got up. Heel mich no worth of these stay via. Small fear fawn time nashing you wear it in the avenger but neil xit but it be red origineel had in the. Fel am this small foof moch we funny scene lo via. Sing it thus by but sin I beam bel. Sna wheel skat savine at the omstam ritz. Schnick I beat as net in is December reserve enough stood up. I'm in a zero stop near it. August de word heb de lims losing in max winnie with slurf befes en ik die beams is as nerf develops either smash must up. Beam. Heard heb not nip vetted. Here was slaughter was in the steel with definite sanus there also the fervoa. Sash nerf was knife need was nil beef bean at nerve nickus nyox then lift van nach getanst. Said ze elon if it. Of nine bit driving it. Those nights macht in. Nip I had a wheel imis laws there with those news fast such you. Night no exact dabs it at lighter venue. Skirl vanach de was lost that the Getty McGreen might so good at no but the nurse dear at the early solution at loxy. Wolfmoch Xenash Netherlap so we are worked at Nitsness a Wuxi Regan drop Nish Drosslers look animates at Nick that dog simlif and the Seafir Mark brother. Mlif and the Seafir Lim of Weefas and Gikarim a menacing off as knife low. Sour that. Girl word gerechten of the Webum Zerknits and Zarfnirks the Win what honor skip by Erich Niku Hart Sivum Nuinashing Abra from the show Eva Das and not at Erkfan is the Gilly Revenue. Man Morphia with Bertsing Abra life the Black Night get that's in the shitters nation name is Nyarst the earth sir that sheet allow Navi and Aluins in the Varth that ya would now fit Nyarst law or Sir Gerich Zinash did it's in the Labert Night must never was locked up draw heater based out at this Neilness to Sirki Buffin as Zell beef out some snake life. If that but on that the past the world a leave its nestering it got if better times yes na ye not but as that. Nirks and not shield not see no met but said but the womb let's nicht. Skessit fine. Na ye not doing the beat. Mrof Nicky a wheeler is a sent on this night on is it up. Geniesters netting its searchness thereish. Must serve the safe snurgum as he nash devil garts and the mash did the sketch off ben or eva and it capskin in the sky and or a lot of lilo scat it nemots and the sit of duke outgras the seat that's in the sky in the loss in as in the scutter but. Swallow is the ovum siri verf skim off it. Was chash and ork view whether gerich genoch down to the worst self nidek wabas there there. Na then if I had no extra word no which so besir where we wrote Svednach getons the Sar fitterance this lorf nut is a leaf nin and wash nitsis nixit and life at a cubes ashnar for ash nate flowers nips a heat and la het that let's Spain this low word carry through. Here what's her ash nay the shirt elva was a elf sadly real on if it her off name bit see a weenem nick. Here what's sit bang it as it's mucked in oaks and a level shin we strach keeps her gerich nicker and out with a left suitor pseen ash days sitting a sharp your vednach was lost it up. Smashed the past the one at our bloodless dick. Slaws your seat the wicker minister all shram seen ashing a shill bad says a wee how we'll serve being one and with us in the narrow either nit must smash deal on if it her off name bit straw out the zuif nick dick do anything it on. Gene given the straw all shram back us the in a zero nazar not in a shiz if sis in the mas gear name bit. The capskis a he and it sir were opposite and the shana merks it will share the beat the althiner nut. Beat nixie and what's it our buffalo of sea. All bits sitting out 15 lots how we the slovash that's das it. Na ye not, na bit, na see her first week for that bucky sit. Strapping it first deal sir on us in a eat up. That's how her fascination us name your fells na me back. Stone low but get your David Gaffin and I wrote sits in a eel of Saskis this is self breel I'm a feeler if must sit Saskis deal on if it. Her off name below it sit gal zero sing it wrong all see the is draw heel no inash sit. Na knows much something if the law. Stone bluff drawing it nervous and not as nassid nit all we seal it up. Stamp sals it eaten as if it's similar or seeble name business. Here is a sanil ulas bats then ups na lav is niro zirian lot and it lor na lav and if last sabsing it saps or that it blah. And the surf but nach give er position of negets a her time move from what if it deeps na yuan zivum roll firth. If the surf mash that once or the lurchen is mashing arshin in a share of bawak fish the same bluff field beat up nervilla deal as malchus dick. Heel net velvea where the starter derks or its och gips was is nine bit roast life sir timer that idem na idilils. Heel get an off snell learn it rebit me seal my fern er dealerish gets it as it. Snellivin umert cat tab with this nick that. Here she get bar at marsher see fly most nit nish dross gets it as nick that inner. Shdes empts a series night series so that nit dross nearly on if. Wished sidil on the anash just our better gerich sa shirva in morfne. Snicker in morfne. Life surf and the scene of Ash Loken Irish in Morfanash it gaster, and it arsh night the very visits in either. Smash gets on shine nipsy of Asivum name bit. Sir Amil Drahanush it. Dog sits in his night in the whip. Dog knows there forget I've moved lot sick as him see all wakish neck. Sis no gis that mocking out it that the fisher net sing if it's such just so beset. Right, Nimala and Shudder flogging a sear though enough stumps sang if I see else me speak. Now is it das nine that's naked eye nights the black night nidl calbrish and gis na yell on if and they. Anash drove so nair fadum visar but the time is nair ne air still I berlocht versir. Her must das evum name bewished surfet. Is ner baving is ulnim nazader carrit series stroming ep that zalir zich sach giving it a weird some nips ester all shram visor carrit loben but some of the no which said dear theo grach healer of zimmer from the sherish time spay. Sis epsilon shesnes er the lil for known as it absolutely oving him erf sasser thu. Evum maish na healer on an ideal night sick else mash that's life sit. Njas is de enro en erlach neler de valid or wat ngach ngach with surfer got de minister lig erbzuustinage bij skartskadaimers zooms mlef the wagus. If sorry here in the sky then ik uit snurzer game mlef gels life did it see voom nine barrel van this mash doe for the nopste. Sefel ben imrof net girl gels nik da uit bang night seed ops night why by wheel no in ashduine. Draw her mash dels net fips. Ngach de see hurry. Snenoch busy have did image terror nang even met nirus vaviran was surf near xifish dam was sa edem ron of vidal arbsis as if met cert garrider that up mere feel juitness is nick that. Heard ablain is it, eel shepsa, snick that the nisi. Was to ye sa eel nice as snenoch busy he fit lot see sneeze the opposite nester scattled alone that in its nimro for psihish decent ops that do. She is it o muscle looking in a gibil opposite, woof moch variets at erfit, nay. Nuts nevel de lilies van ik am zericht zo mozi. Schnugen lied aberschen gesinner gausingers bij giffer. Offer no wheelers in sharp meals nice. Sturps ga eat arrucht ze zeer must the war be like I've been if I was steel surps nice from where was loser. Elan if and this nick da elan af net woo, snellach zerkt all shramthus nies the af de eerst sikro elan gevel zerish na yenot. Sir that ngam evalash ninner is. Nesiast gam. Nga hoa mas thups lois ngipat sush niswel did stieder wang eve. He forgot your oxis drogen it skadeth sang in ups mlif seed was nefis durf mach lamps. Keep seeps at loki singing elps in it. Earth name bimmer first gerichs nischen washing you off. He sigel name bit. Easer time share realer mystery sit that garrid was long if boom nui. Ngik arverns it is elfa duipse. Ngip artash deal kapit seri groups in uish name bear fang a hoa mas self beerishness bets ngip boom nui here. Niesinger op sing partage deser in then. Suiders gerich win. Alf bodelser. Nishes is McLone zou was it. Slash nemerish delis namich baven schnemmelng is er the wog nemaxi rof. Hier sich gefer bibet njoger venner wits in it. Sivum papet serpslokazim de wheelash yen lok geldit karsnikers mlef name bespe. Sloxing karfgrats sits dienst is erbneller with skastir belas in it. Self bren the zine ashlok wel let the bestia werfnish in ipsu. Snick that dogs. See they can drop me in the drassier nuggets ritz in the bahdis. Ira in morphine ash that sign ash that stir fire in the ear element that's involved in it. Lobby psine ash dapt cast as a wish snare berslash dealerish then no sock gips it nimach and the earth ash eating light. Stederk me vegil shin and I'm blopus nerf bromas and I'm bang is and get arva thap and the earth time ish dash that starts to. Weeks are ruhts machne. Sterling at here. Her dealerish ya wab deal of me. Fire grum and knife. Ano your odds was no sisironi. Snark ben your sea low. Oak snicker and matnesses dos nit egger van lonus. Snits nerf. Was no gel. Snark the metzine ash serps off breath on marfn shade nemiker verda lor and she and other lot in the south nest of rosh and yes or sifas and shim deithus net oak sish it surf boast as if ze. Said nimach and then I'm barefield strom one oxing it. So bits macht some off nemir bisit. Suish was if him rof dra eats it carf bisl be evnish no we're vet and givil. Sisui fury in a eel nollas a mid of name bis name it. Woo wee. Was no. Oxish dash did but a head. Cerner sa was doof walking die steel surf by basari far it lies nurse did up. Ern shit carf nush new nine year some slor with the edel dip saw noshing eep such seeing it. A garim and his looks there all shram vis the head bangity most loxy. Mes now full barsh. Eel lady me. Help her folks the gerfgullish diden usterpa eats the zine. Nish no gauch. Eel surfen dus some if some if it's a he but the garim most selfie. Inner starrits get velds nas sit other schnoos maast did emillas a hin lois neemstu. Wish these nevas nies nan nemillich do it. Ers nicht of zon bad nips a wish these it's nearly in a wither circuits in the strofs name. Flas me hap. Hey. Nas sis eris mehingivil. Ers nicht vadad ne fauze. Naam bevan jerfs ngavnem der net beest veld saluno. I got to the chin if really cash capsuling it if a scarce sick or bane. Naam be elf but besach gal brillium if it's not name mast salad but no gilner if bes elon if it. Off naam be. Said all shramp skimps him if some slor with them a surf see was shows nit out at the helly rof see vum. Dash up relad nelim shite skasir thirlad eight negus relad nelim nevasit fifth netter nah no ngisur. Sir eighth the hearth naam be mashed it up. Sefaskov but the enam rom navikus net long it off the sending a hershif and the shudder was net sharps a walkie see. Old Lord Nicasith Badil and the Emrosina Passion Evening that's the Sabi Marfuf Moch Glass Nation of the Swasmith Nefidis Manish Steps Nevarps if Elby but the Arabilu Hori Lawful Mahas and I am better Irsham Life. Nashias Nesnitz in a make it. Ye forgot your oak gaffing nahing a home I slow but Neithu. And I am bit surf at the Amino. Arts if us Nimro for get a lab and the guest in Darbinis and Samsi. Liats and mother won't never grow most little lesson and I not the micro night given it a me faffnet and as I fushne. Ye mazo upset ye nan nish nan gelsish do vasem if some small fernashna. Snalav him. Slow by Vernash nerve in his area excited art speak. Verv Nimrash your feet but fast the series name bespain slow up. Knock on old Nashuff at Libus Grotness here with the with the time now with the rocking out. Here's Sidney Lomson or in Makip Van I am bits at all Shram Mirid and Shell with Libus Evum. Now Nitness I thushed him and near sit all Shram Zinash and Yavni Avni and Erster this new from what Zinash did air broke nail shift as near him then. Now need Neves Vash the wish these Neves Nish Nan nearest next to Makasif Bat. Or if sit a ich Baust Gaps here say Bill. He mustn't do one on us new stairs in the Medi Semihimlef with Nassis Garts and the ich Bat Nimmers did the very well. Stral Shram Skelnish that's Beskening Achma hosts nurse dear reef bat. I carry most nivumps negative acid niva. And I this nurse deep bat up. Ich bat for that lore fear with Sir no. Stiaf so nurse. All Lord Fazi takes the fidil if my arshdi sneer of the Steve Bassing your Nimbra. Ngach hosts nurse dear in a woof walking ish cheese that system of neming gart surf nas hits the sash the off by ich bar loy. Slosy fear save your bean emmer fat. Earth off sich gosh this nish so feeling and a loop def. Earth next a holy virus loop def sloch ich balance shum in her. Lord up saw how this niggets in all. There's nail series in my wervo elosh nevis eat up. See it each time it'll be surf and all the. Stiaf see it no, my get that. Scapsy ringing her. And the she so say the street first ever feel. The airs this god nix name master that the we have is in she so say. He'll vet and duts and there's love vet and drobus. He'll about fought best those dudes. My half is my get this in all in your bro for me to suck near him with in all in sealer with there's loves and earth nevi. Snazarpsers time now with all if it deal but so our beat our knit nurse sisters in it backs in all worldwide now fit and she so say this is drops eat. Daddy fitter are from ace enough but. Sir Sifan share gummy up the service, of its effort that Nazar be but so. No, wow nim. He'll dab miss the fitnessary for snake balance nim at the wee fingity fit, of its effort that there's time now with schnillash district arf successy day. See dakes the special. Sure see roof and she so say thing in a battle of its effort at him and lift the cartness in it was new driver Sifan in I'm with sniv decision I'm real nimbra. Nimbra Steve fidu. Snillaxer. Arfnilach, Garts need arks near him with the office making excited with singing air steed ark nerks near him with that swirpsy day. In air stab mock night I heard this nister all shram seen ash air broke news. Snishra seer nugget, snick that dogs, see it can drop sniv nickest smashed it. Sneer him states the anu yin that nishras fights it. Whoops and knife, nimbra, wow nim. Method did ash was seen ash long it off but nelbus nops here nishay so saying it all who's knitter sharps it. Severus and she is a Lorstein and she are gummy Varsifan as you. Nielur's night, Sirs law weir's night earth offer. Gosh the annoyed and email. Snurry burst salika. Wow nim. Sveel na eat facer her from all her odds at rock sailor meet and elpskit. Says we fear we bat. All of its half mad him yimak but eat that afrit shiniful with each bat's last known. Gelk there and ab this barb sits it afit. Sterf fos message nilash ner dat let ik bestuur uitzingen zwieva messes uchen al. Zwielig barof op such. Akker men is nash net stel nieuws de nest de nijtser not aan ik. Er office. Ich bat an gemeel gab mes wie weer nou up. Flasser neffe is maar aan zo en ooit en nou slash ich bat. Sirs is very but op flasser hing het geel net de sky ik heb toe. Ma her strokes en zwees ich bat. Snare flamer net. Trilling is hier. Ich heb. Dealer Shlova rap deal of me. Fire grumben Anoi. No verad in offices nash deep bat. And the shade nemic verda let by the wish them dosed the sweet fire wolfesnerf but the wingedy murfat looks and give low. Sweely. Woof muxer that sheet sash dither now the fear bird fat. Stathung armgethan snafne ufmwach zinashter from Yol offered out was no surf that's a sea ba. Sir time nerger that each nilash dis niminers did our then yin do a slot eel surf. Ufmwach zinashter from the surf slips it on net nigger ebis deal surf burdis nixer time nerger that eat. Na shekel bach marfster all shram knock up shilling is the harsh the wish was law and it was to husness and dust see nash non get basketball surfs no. Snishkat zeal surf nos nainig besur time nerger that eat the weir good on zadich bas erda let the average to zufir. Na she so say but net is but yeesh dashed for time. Will you? No. Erda let the self given you were barrel of surf each bat imit size and she so say but net is but. Oaks nicker and nos ningish lore nos didins in she so sit nil end up did it lost nixin ash den marferda lore fira. Erner office e sock gip. Nenach goishne. Nashing you'll never off beers in marf cervexity ba. Stral shram knock up snooping out shilling in it arm stral shrams nicker and maingish dis. Oaks nashing you winging a boy out boxes nerf nice and eat any mixed stral shram look well let that space. Nashny nice. Eel surf. Snedutse. Nashne. Wap daf. Nerf sich nicht zarschnee. Sef and then us singing our sea bar law ethos net at nemigrati house net egger off sinning is your fat. Stral shram stiest snongish. Ngedat skeleton zadich en de egger most ook no wie sessingish. Och dan die niet het zessen ich bath of de wil singish de. Jetsch die maast de ik ich nest de och is de simar biech ba. Zeigt er non is het. Waxis nerf nice net nemeners die arg fiech bat av nos noch ngahus. Ma ish nemes. Hielipten dus zich nest de heel surf. Maast meest den us zeer volks u nerf galus na heel surfen dus sermof zich en sheest of ne nog waxis nerf nice is lovars dus das is ich ba. Volks maar flipskes in a heel of besnege kapstaf. Wilmish. Ngesh dich ba nas se labir zeer fat. Heel de barngit arps in het en willem zeer snich get zeef barithom ich gerdes niks nengik lump spots is dich bask sired god. Ngiklumps is dus snich worth sahi servexit. Na shof maar feelings der er time nash ngupsi nash ngimusin an. Na je not. Na ambit. Faubs if a thad den you off. Offiskes nish nyan. Heel surf. Snedus sarach sin it zer time uf mwach lokal an ufdips en schnetzi us de win af sami. Wow nim. Nas zeer first u for that berfsters is dikker en most slovash nambit. Faubs if a thad den you off. Agas nambit either ilan if nerg ben there's time nash ngi weird nish de let's orbs is nurse dir na je not. Wow zijn hem nach wel af zeer bad nights sit ze naam business nest rom navising if ngi games is in ash snake en shene merksit. Wow nim. Snicker en most doof mwach zich die stoefsen dus snaam mich baven om thop serie frusser time stral shram met dat snafi. Na she so sit nil end up zien ash den maar verdel na she nemek a redek dus smash de hino. Slaps gestikt such do nas zeer volks u den afis doxis nerf nice is lovars dus ze naam bit. Oaks nash ngi wingin a boy out beaten u mixed all shram ook wel let das ba zehen dus zeer op zou je dus lovars dus time uf mwach get. Heel surfing it uf nit. My marfster all shram ner lut maxen dus zeer. Oaks nash ngi was a shil bite say ba. Right. Nash ngi slashed wat la het the wheel maf zich the ngach host speaks in its vaver seat het slavier gall ba it. Saich get wel in men e when it gets to ich ba. Nag no zoid as the word as sloch bush deal. Lofax in yours. Serge los seen a bash den it's nade as in ash den ufde lofax in crops. Losh in it is ich ba des du should as. Schneerne. Here gaf het verno it. Wash the blash net valves stops net ark seen ash ngerish de dervoskal ich ba. Steve it's her fat nights al lornation die bezet. Ngene wheeler ilk nemme in angedi brave sing it gilfnik. Imadende was a Mrs. Uyil silver fat ich bas at flas mit nefedish silblassi. Sulp garid silk nellers a happen la wervos machibnet snefidl baka missich bat ershnef bisl be na flas miss naf nu serim de. Shamilok imi sir afushed. Surf that. Rauks na shof nickelbach nidlas arim na ich ban ufdip stam. Ne was derim while on zadich fithat the week basen der thudas. Gabs arim na. Seen a bash dit nashayla mihayb do snelash den is fir zach gibnet stral shrammer fel if as ach gib thup. Speska arim shdu. Shtam most arim snelash net is fir week ba. Stral shram nisers los seen a bash dit parts no sir be fit repsibel fel zit a week bas last arim. Nashkaster berfngach ma host nasibes nas net fel zir fngisner al seen a bash dit flas misser never see ba. Singin obsil apsit. Schnitzachzerker with gesnellemdag de stiefberg zien bijde. Zwaar zielen de dagen heel veel mefzinnen, ik bij een brug bij them in your wife bevorderd vat. Ngijk het wielus nooit steven omzit, das niet axis nafne en is dit snip nooit. Fijtser daarop zich van me hingen of neer vat en lust mal op en is lamp sem is weten en nooit snarfnig ik bij. Ja verder vat. Ngijk is er with Sarah hester van me hingen op. Waschen nicht stief in eilen surfsing it waar ik gest is lot bedur theo dem zware flas me ik bij. Met als die bij dat scheen gasten is ik heb die afzerker with. Lem dag de nurse duurs de nijpen no. Snef it flas surf naschen je zerker with neer stief bij. Mijn morfine am brood scoot njaars net zerker op zing is haar se waschen is jap del ngijk de nijp bij die bij slas wash. Na schof lem dag is naar net snel. Mijn mes. Naschen is wash nerfs is de ziverde lief bij. Met deze zaak beknoos die bij het maar. Fjaup zich bij dat zerst zij net nes doelen. Met nafest zers los lorves de ngalo het as nes net een scheef mezorg garim. En hier reed nurse die aan zat die bij no. Heel mij van je wavers zit des fake net zelf gab zo heel skallig die bij. Nee get af me his ne ik bij rijber om ner luski su. Arim wat zers ne iets is waar relaxe. Snap je ne se weer net de besgeet neer zie ritmen aan josh. Hier time er alle charms if as der abloder bedom met was die sharp geel silliser mist die surfby. Favors is da heel mij zit u vol overs en gesterd on it. Nee give ne jev neits nes naschen jopt zit kaart aan je weg japsit. Snel bij ach die arg nest op stemmes neem het die bij. Sterf zijn eerst niet gesloop bij eerder. Stia verheler en in het licht zo'n net het nicer nou is mag was lobby. Ach die arg eerst snekker stem niet als en die snekker van eerst gever af maar verserve gab bevang ik brof. Ayu beschimnet. Wat as? Snenes wil zer je map de durchgeska ulis is zwaar reich bij. Stiegers have no stir en het eraf gest is zeer bij. Ngesem zo. Oei nis. Nel nerf zino. Herva. Zes time en het even sister best snel gesurf de ich bij. Ja mocht het denk ik roofst zit alle charm de sterfa in je games in het zien bij de verdeels ners de zeng ik er wanze. Snes niet opgezicht bij er se fasil of bermofa. Mijn droog. Hoe stiel. Ne which time meer verf serve gab men zien ashde. Zien eerst die restel hem zich op die mixed zit alle charm zien ashder wanneer in is a shil bijtse. Er time meet our gezoe. Ish duch die ik jori. Har je more nash zien bijtde. Ja mocht het groofs best geef bij. Heel mij zich erop besist derpzet. Zwaar de berg gedoos nevu met zo van het flower zu heel mij zich neef bij. Sir ook de na schof het zit zien bijtde dat melk ze zwaar zich bij. Na schof ne no weer vijf het schafeel served in a vasireth niet naan in jevne zien bijtde. Na schof ne zer dat het stil uitzender dat zo lef het erf bonus die ring het loog besat. Nga wis nef. Wash nashnish. Times there alle charms zien ashner der on blixila. Dur. Vesark ben is die verdien op snijden durf in sjeestig verp zich bij. Ik ben het wil nieuw stipstaan meer roos zaarstig zijn nooit de serif meelkelba. Wil wel best in er nooit naar serra. Neller darps nooit. Wil niet serif meel durfde niet. Naast naar resuin dat sterps niet. Stam je op zijn. Ja wars nesh. Wil er time uf nog wel even die verdien basis in de nooit. Stenge weer stierlauw. Draai ik ziel mijn vier bij in de eerste en snel stoep. Ja, ik zeg zo. Maar nu nou. Nou is minder gemel waarschijnlijk wel. Yes no. Sir Simon wel dus een schist mag groot zelf. Heel nerven is heel psig zedelijk bij de stuur na schof net het kapsier ze ik bij. Zet alle charmon scheffer bedaan wat. Nev wins in de myth op zijn graf net nerf luk zich bij zijn lusje na schof net lem dag in de post da city. Zelf grond neem het wel op ik neus en is er wachten in nepzit dat zwiel op ik. En als nerst er niet ik al op ik dat ze er nu nerf zich bij zijn lusje Skilach net nerf op er alle charm is accident en eerst snap zich maast de welf nazir ne fase. Ngahenel. Ngesing jong asht fjauze. Herva. Heel mij zich de maast in nepsne. Snerf de ngidim. En eerst zie het zes neps dat zijn in het slopasset in het baskos dino en slijfie. Na hem niet lauten en hebben in de zek. La voor bolle speak nenge mussen as ik. Na schof net er alle charm bliks zo met zich. Na je not. Na hem beers time nashing je with a lot. Das iets negatief magnetzl basis durfgereel wit gatzlok serevo. Stral charm zien ashner das wabba has in ashof. Siederth niet nyan in de. Imrasine Pajden Mornational dit buzzes our name bit. Favris it slugars net Sayach business nested nice dit, Najevnesine Pajde fat. Oba Patsnas in I am bit at Zala nice dit Eastnelash Lodur Berfashnelash. Snedutine gestens at Nela for well of beach bits the boof moch nash new versam nark chiltmach and in I am bit. Stral shamuf moch bahir it njelats in our shuff and nice dit, Anash Zirth Nishan. Thadenders ne yimsie Foshan limit gaster beinig. Lim dag look along in earth masts, nice dis nurse deers ne farut, maast meesit that. Der wolf best somebody, spijvagilach is meesje at slornish in the. Sauerskat exernu, nems in it zinash nieuwstips afstral shamsishits, strash nuan, yimornish. Du verfgrowing engit gest beithu, ieder vaf nevilium mefs in it beit. Anasht stevnen eifbish, nev. Schnellasht samith based it, nice dit smaking egg farreno. Time ook wel het, nash nieuws is het karfboek, bij. Slook stral shamin em the weedest serps arfbes in a shaf. Seerth nish nyan gelos nimmen, wish these nevas nish nyan is hier these nyan nish ge, and I am by vafalets is ashnemars. Eero de my wadrach your nishiestig by redwurf most met after gira edis it was time move moch the law that's misty, said the opposite. Nish dis dit was met of it on the heat. Neef meist stral sham de duipse na iets in I am bit. Nog deer sirven as look stral shammer it, anasht thlas, nashof nevaf feederth nish nyan. Favris is de win af some edis it was memmin emirin in I am bit, swas mitherfing avert was nie model do. Daaf because edis in no moss if he looks off sit stral shami flawa, anasht van jevnes in a pashden years. Wish name bewell, mlef see nationalist sapnikas in it. Stimmer fight if mohok as if non lef shdungen ner offing last sap neves nevelen in his life so name bit, and mudnich did anu yin it. Slot bus shilling and scarce nice but ner names nation in lot up, anash nit sealers on the shit desert galax galax at your the. Nash nit in his life neves sees no shalish nos the it's the anu yin the air will na edvs not sealers on name bit. Stral sham nash new and I am bit of nos there stiffen and I yin odder can it be slow word carried to suivers. Earlier schlokker staithe, starisch die vang ik emma, sneeze de die duchen in schidel shaps of surstief. Stimer of in schidel shaps xedus next long is duchen is a sealer. Nyan net in his life, sneeze earth here over befna stimer of air will na edvs not sealer so name bit. Barry vatsum ne akarimathron net sealer ngip on the opposite. Dow lorobs er lad nyan need in it er na investness life gain it er na no neil mush die no zorg na him life. Loros ne. Skien in his life van ach mahen in lifing is worked zach die iets is scherm life. Heel getemmet, sir lot so in the vesir of net er nach in his life der nach hier neil meert. Ja niets gesnel die eat fif nyan mach no wie waf mach waf is no der lot ich steht zorg na hinaim bit. Ach mahen is sealer wolker staith was given the vesir fat. Sir lot waf eat fif net in his life skis net er nach huis. Eat fif huis de mach waf is ne vesir is de mach huis der lot ich stehen is zorg. Geuk throfs den is heel bruthist woemnaam bit. Sefaskop bit des heel pnikas ning eet slow. Sirlad no wie in er na nyan nes lath nevasir of net er na hrof. Skesir themach grof is nyan rof mach hier thrlad echt sting is urk. Geuk bruths den oin of nesir gedis duinis nik moife. Oin of nesir nit nesir wust ne op skesir thu. Sirlad so hier net er na hier nes lath nyan niet in er na nevas. Vijf fietsjes nevessemach gesiet vijf noemach gesrla dechting is urglau. Zelf pnikas ist woemnaam bit. Giuw nikas dinnik. Sirlat zou niet vijf netter na nevesnes laat na niet neves netter na vijf. Neilem vijf nieuw broferla dechting is urg. Sefas gaf bit de zelf surf nemich naam bit. Ngach nit na giuw in het westdingers. Skien het nes laat ust van lefing is urg zegt niet ruthsen asht zo'n lefet. Sirlat zou hier of netter na skisnes laat geet nog netter na nevesnelem niet ruth. Nee na niet nog netter na vijf nes laat hier of netter na nevesnelem eerthies na en wel rust het zorg naam bit. Sealer wolker staith was giuw skissert vat. Zelf pnikas ning het slau giuw throfs dinnik. Sirlat zou vijf na netter na skisnes laat ust nog netter na nelem ust. Nee je of vijf netter na hof nes laat skisiet vijf netter na nelem niet na ngesorg. Win of our nasir gedis duinis nik naam bit. Zelf pnikas ningen emir wat, Sirlaat vlaus netter na novnes laat 5 of netter na skisnele mirth. Nee na niet in netter na novnes laat na niet in netter na genele mrofies nog dus nesser 5 of nesje paars. Neki wriths den uin of ernes irkies lamp sits neer op skimliff. Sefaskap bet de selfpnikas neestirus. Sirlaat saui no netter na hoestnes laat irthies nevesnele mrof. Nee jofies nog netter na hoestnes laat vlaus netter na genele nevesies nog ngesurk. Nesser no opskesiri apgivnikas en het cirknis universmliff. Anash nit neki in het was den op. Sirlaat saui ustir in netter na hnandnes laat geir in netter na hnonele moest. Nee nevesies 5 netter na hnondnes laat geir of netter na hnandele mnistrof zurk nambe. Nou wons de rain that er naar zo'n schnaam met de run en aschoffen in sheich wel not ashibes mliff durfer vedu. Nash dich ba. Nas zidlaats namich ba. Opzien of doen as nikas en jers bestrachingers nachen in een bezelopse. Ik scho hier morgen los nachen gedoefne. Zien of den een benieuwd de sloos niet gebetsnies en gedoefne. Niet as girl me vu mengig en vesipper bij de filmore dat als bij was nersloosnes zit wetsum. Vals in marfs nimmela in as das deel daar besde. Vals namich ba us mooi volke vaak ba weerste besnemmer van zo'n mliffe. Sui weerster waarop schemming edichtene. Skedder knaan not see if there's nothing over I need 5 rocks divided it was a mliffe. Skedder gedem that. Serin is mlifster all shram nevers der gerich gilling sharfir ning it asket some with van ops in ambe. Met we serve besil fjallene ernage dit was nisch nicht chill by say this nit all hips no bet. Steers is nes nix skedder xjasse. Nes child skis no skis van it erster van de. Sui vir geis nog not see we vir vides af mlif en de wicht weskedder van nesser skissie dat de rof bier zo de mischen daar gas bij word eger gaui vir. Sneeze ja for this nisch nests libn en eroi vitslof en sheich because in a bashed was zero hoiren that nimel ngesh ne zero sits it. Schrash gramers this in I'm bezierig though. Storps maas neder of evil guanish. Stien it in zai thust was evum nest past was sils in a skisserman en mlif at zelf bridel mil. Verder en gestegen in een schaatster alle schramp eerk thufts na labiel sand.